Thank you all for coming. My name is Cord Akers. I'm with the Akers firm, and I'm honored to be here today with my father, my partner, and the great attorneys at Farrar and Ball, Bill Ogden and Mark Bankston, who couldn't be here today. But I'm even more proud to be standing next to the most important people here. And that's Jacqueline Aluto, Felicia McKinney, and Liz Gomez. These astoundingly courageous women have been through appalling horrors, and they'll be introduced to you, and what happened to them will be introduced to you shortly. So as you all know, we are here today to announce a lawsuit filed this morning in federal court against Harris County Constable Alan Rosen and two of his chief deputies, Chief Gore and Lieutenant Shane Rigdon, for some of the most unspeakable sexual police misconduct that any of us have ever seen. Already, since this morning, our clients are getting calls saying that their careers will be over if they go through with this. Already. Not only does this corruption at Precinct 1 affect victims outside the department, not only does it affect the citizens of Harris County, it affects the women within their own very walls. The policies put in place in this case by Constable Alan Rosen, the people he put in power, allowed this horrible atrocity to occur. And the illegality and the misconduct goes all the way to the top. In 2019, Harris County Constable Alan Rosen formed a human trafficking unit, the idea being to treat sex workers not as defendants or suspects, but as victims of larger organizations. The chief of the unit was Chief Chris Gore. And Chief Gore, under Constable Rosen's supervision, engineered a new type of sting, a new type of operation called a bachelor party sting. In a bachelor party sting, under Chief Gore's creation, undercover deputies, the males, would pose as the Johns, the buyers, and undercover females would pose as prostitutes. The idea being that when the actual sex worker came in, they would be more likely to agree to sex for a fee, an arrest could be made, interviews could be done, and arrests up the chain could be made. However, Chief Gore was given free rein of this operation. He insisted to all the deputies involved that he be present at all of these stings in an undercover capacity himself. But he also instructed all of his deputies to not include him in any of the police reports. He would ensure on all these ops that liquor and beer were consumed in abundance, and would continually pressure, specifically the women involved, to drink more so that they could loosen up, so that they could start the party. All on the county dime, all on taxpayer-approved, paid-for operations, and all on county-approved operations by Constable Rosen. And as you can imagine, the party did start. This booze-filled sexual environment creates an extreme danger for abuse and misconduct, and that danger was immediately realized when Gore selected who he wanted to work with in these cases. Mostly young Latina deputies with little to no trafficking experience and absolutely no applicable undercover training experience. These women, these brave women, were ordered by their commanding officer that your job in my unit, in an undercover capacity, is to dress in scandalous clothes, to allow me to kiss you, to allow me to fondle you, essentially to be molested by their commanding officer. That is exactly what happened. And as these operations went on, the focus went more on that and less on the victims they were trying to save. Anyone who complained was either ignored, rebuffed, ridiculed, in some cases outright fired. Jacqueline Aluto reported this conduct to the constable, reported this conduct to her commanding officer and was ignored. Reported this conduct to the district attorney's office and was told, we don't want to start an investigation. Finally reported this conduct to internal affairs when she's finally given an interview. And the very next day, they cut her hours to zero, effectively firing her. They thought she was silenced. Constable Rosen essentially ran, oversaw, and approved an ongoing free-for-all in which senior male deputies were given carte blanche to use young female deputies for their own sexual pleasure on these operations without fear of repercussions. Constable Rosen appeared at one of these operations personally. The notion that he did not allow this to occur without his express knowledge and approval is absolutely fanciful. The mission statement of Harris County Precinct 1 Constable's Office is to enforce the laws with honor and integrity while at all times conducting ourselves with the highest ethical standards to maintain public confidence. As this case progresses, we're going to see that those are just words. Now, I will tell you, some people have asked me if it is worth it to go through this endeavor. Some people have asked me if I'm nervous. Some people have asked me if I'm just painting a target on the back of my head. And let me tell all of you what I've told all of them. It's the right thing to do. Today marks the beginning of the end of Precinct 1's ability to operate with impunity. Today is the day they start becoming accountable.
Good morning. My name is Bill Ogden. I'm a trial attorney here in Houston, Texas. I specifically represent two deputies in this case, Liz Gomez and Marissa Sanchez. My clients were subjected to this behavior from Precinct 1's top brass without any training and without any regard for their personal autonomy. They weren't warned, they weren't prepared, they were given a brief heads up and thrown into a room that was nothing more than a party. I'm not going to go into the specifics. The petition lays them out, and I think everyone has it. But what I will say is that my clients will not live in silence. They won't live in fear, and they damn sure will not live in shame. I look forward to being their advocate and telling their story. And today marks the day that they were all brave enough to come forward for it. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Brock Akers. As you can tell just by looking at me, I have a little bit more vintage to me than these other fellows. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I've taken over 400 jury verdicts and thought that I'd seen it all. But I was wrong. I was so sadly wrong. Because what we have learned from our very brave clients here today that you're getting to meet is both as shocking as it is disturbing. At a time when law enforcement is criticized so often and so often unfairly, we are bringing to light with our lawsuit conduct at the very highest reaches of the Precinct 1 Constable Office. And it will cause people to shake their heads and wonder, how could this happen? And sadly, the answer is that the leadership gave in to their own prurient desires, turning the female deputies they commanded into the sex exploitation victims they were arguably trying to save. Let me first speak of Felicia McKinney. Felicia is herself a mom, married to another deputy, proud to be in law enforcement, and proud when she was offered the position in the trafficking unit to take it. Because one of the things she thought, if I'm not going to take it, who will? I need to do this for my job, for all those people out there that are being trafficked. She was shocked as she got into it what her bosses had in mind in order to make these arrests. She was following orders, but after a time she came to realize that what these men were asking her to do was just plain not right. Her most shocking experience, though, came when she was thrown as lamb to a slaughter into a sexual assault of her own. Because she was literally instructed to go to a massage parlor for the purpose of being sexually assaulted. And after that occurred, she emerges, and what does she see? She sees a press conference much like this one, where her boss is using her as the tool for headlines for himself and his office. And yet, there was no concern whatsoever for the trauma that she herself had experienced as a sexual trafficking victim. Our other client is Jacqueline Aluto. Jacqueline is a hero. She's a hero in a lot of ways and a lot of reasons. She has dedicated her life to human trafficking and to doing what she can for the victims of this horrible scourge that has hit upon us. You know, we in Houston have among the worst problems of human trafficking here for a variety of reasons, and it's what attracted her here. She's been given awards from all sorts of places, up to and including the United Nations. And she was hired because of her vast experience in this grant that was given Precinct 1 in order to combat sexual trafficking. Her notoriety and her expertise were very attractive and important for her, and she was excited about getting the hands-on experience and the direct opportunity to help with law enforcement. But what she saw after a while, and what these other brave deputies, the people that became her friends, started telling her, just plain shocked the conscience. And unlike these others, she was not herself a deputy, and she could speak out, and she did, and she confronted, and she said, this is not right. And she went to Chief Rosen and said, this is not right. Constable Rosen, and said, this is not right. She ended up going to the district attorney's office and said, this is not right. And ultimately, she told her entire story to the Internal Affairs Department, and what happened the very next day? She was essentially fired. Like court said, they thought that they could silence her, but they couldn't. Jacqueline is here. She's going to speak to you in a second about the consequences of this game playing, this partying, in the name of police work that has been going on at Precinct 1. Her life mission has been to save these women, and part of the reason, the big part, I mean, when she came to us several months ago about this, and as it's all developed, it's her desire to keep this very thing from happening. And she's boldly coming out to explain what's going on, and, as we will find out, the sad consequence to the victims of this trafficking, the girls lost that could have been saved but for this conduct. And so now it's not only my pleasure, but I am proud to introduce this brave person, Jacqueline Aluto, who really kind of started this off. Jacqueline?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not nearly as brave as these two beautiful women standing next to me. I've had the honor of becoming their friends and colleagues, and just seeing how much people really care about combating human trafficking and exploitation. I'm here to speak on behalf of all of us. We really want to thank everyone for coming here. Our voices haven't been heard in so long, and it's nice to be heard. As scared as we are, and we've already gotten phone calls about our careers being ruined and retaliation, we are here to speak truth to power so that this never happens to any more women and children ever again. I want to thank our lawyers for understanding our rights and fighting for them and actually explaining them to us. I don't think any of us were actually aware of everything that was happening to the capacity that it was. I want to thank these women who are standing up for themselves and others. It's not easy to talk about being exploited and retaliated against. It's certainly not easy to talk about being retaliated against and exploited against powerful people who are clearly complicit. And this police culture of complicitness has to stop. We work with great law enforcement who is making a difference, and we thank God for them every single day. But this specific culture really needs to stop. I was asked to join Precinct 1, the Human Trafficking Unit, to become an advocate. And it's something that I love to do. I love advocating for people and standing up for what's right. I especially love advocating for children and how vulnerable they are. It's all of our jobs to stand up for them. It's all of our jobs to stand up for women who have been exploited and trafficked and sexually assaulted. It's especially our job when it's people in power who can keep this quiet, and it's quiet for so long as they have. One of the things that I really learned when this was happening, and I learned from the women what was happening, was they were not able to do their caseload properly, which was affecting our children's cases because of their trauma and our toxic work environment, which also trickled down to the children and the cases that, as a community, as law enforcement, and as government officials, we promise to protect our families. We promise to protect our communities. We expect our deputies to be able to go to work, especially with a complex crime like human trafficking, and to be able to do their job. And to not be able to do their job because you're being exploited and oppressed at your workplace can never happen again. This is something that I don't think any of us ever thought we'd be standing up here. We really did try our best for over a year. Just to say, like, hey, this is wrong, putting policies in place, trying to put procedures in place, and just really trying to advocate for ourselves and everyone else who's been hurt. We want to send a message. This can never happen again. This will never happen again. And you can call and you can threaten us and you can retaliate against us. And I mean, I've already been told that my career in the county has been ruined because I've been blessed to work in this great county and have a career. And I hope that that's not the case. But if it is, I'm always going to stand up for what's right. And I'm always going to fight for people. And I'm always going to fight for people who are exploited. And for such a time as this, we need to end corruption and complicitness in people in power. So thank you so much for all being here. And we will not be silent. We will continue to advocate, and we will fight for our rights and others. Thank you.
We can take a couple questions, if anybody has. I'm sorry? I can't comment on any ongoing criminal investigations if they exist.
Will you guys ask for a special prosecutor to look into potential criminal law violations?
If, as the case progresses and we find that the criminal law violations have been made and the district attorney's office cannot investigate it themselves, then we'll ask for an investigation, absolutely.
Have you guys heard anything? Have you spoken with the constable since filing the lawsuit, or have you had any communication with their office?
We have not. We've sent a copy of the lawsuit as a courtesy to the county attorney, who I have all the faith in the world will operate just as ethically as his reputation precedes him.
When did you guys start working on this case?
December.
We were initially contacted in December, shortly after Ms. Aluto was let go. We've been developing facts, and as the facts have developed, more victims have come forward.
What does this tell you that the fact that even the district attorney's office was notified of this kind of incidents of these kind of things that were going on, and it was basically told you don't want to investigate it? What in your mind tells you that nobody would have cared?
Well, we can all speculate, and I can speculate with the best of them. But if there is a reason for that, then I don't know it. And if the district attorney's office had a specific reason for deciding that this, what we believe to be criminal conduct, should not be investigated, then that's something we're going to find out.
A lot of sexual assault victims don't show their faces. Why is yours decisive?
Because this is important. This is vital. This is something where these women, these brave, astoundingly courageous women, are ready and willing, and were ready and willing when they're in the unit, to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. That's what they've always done, and that's what they're doing here today.
Do you anticipate that more victims are going to come forward?
I know that there were more women in the unit that we believe this conduct happened to. If they, I would encourage them to come forward, absolutely.
Rich Love, the trafficking zone. What does it say if we're already hearing of threats this early in the process? What message do you think they're trying to send?
If there are threats this early in the process, if there is retaliation this early in the process, then what it does is it shows exactly the type of structure that Precinct 1 is.
How many more victims are out there approximately? You had mentioned that there were more.
I don't know. Could be a few, could be as many as half a dozen, I don't know. But we'll find out. All right. Thank you all very much for coming. I appreciate your time.